So I am recording this, so please feel free to stop me. I could always pause and go back and re-record. Anyways, this video is going to be on writing equations of lines given a point and a parallel or perpendicular line. So let's begin by writing down the title in your notebooks. And let's also begin by doing a basic question. So if I told you there's a line that passes through a certain point, somebody give me any point you want, any point you want. 5, 6. Surprised you guys didn't say 6, 7. Okay, and let's say it has the slope. Give me any slope you want. 2. All right. So I tell you, there's a line that passes through that point and that has that slope. Is that a difficult equation to write given that information? No, it's pretty simple, right? If I give you a point and a slope, you could write it in point slope form. Point slope form, it's on the board right here. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So this is the form that we're going to need to write it in because they gave us the point and the slope. Let me just cut it out, and there it is. Okay, so there's our point slope form, and I always recommend to rewrite it with blank spots. So you're going to have y minus blank spot equals blank spot parentheses x minus blank spot. Now, in this first blank spot, we're going to have the y1, and of course, that's the coordinate x1, y1. So the y1 is 6. The m goes right here in front of the parentheses, which is clearly 2. And the x1 is 5, so that goes right there, 5. Was that difficult? No, that was easy, right? Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing every time. If I give you a point and a slope, you're going to start with point slope form. Even if I asked for slope intercept, like if I said, what is the slope intercept form of the equation that passes through this point and that slope, you still start with point slope. Why? Because I gave you a point and a slope. There it is. Now, if you want it in slope intercept is y equals mx plus b. Okay, slope intercept y equals mx plus b. So if you want y by itself, and of course you don't want these parentheses, you would distribute the 2. So you would go 2 times x, that's 2x. You would go 2 times -5, that's -10. And you still have the y minus 6 equals, and then you'd get rid of the -6 by adding 6 and adding 6. So you'd have y equals 2x minus 4. Okay, was that difficult? No, right? So again, if I give you a point and a slope, you write it in point slope form. Even if I ask for slope intercept, you change it to slope intercept. Even if I ask for standard form is ax plus by equals c. Standard form, ax plus by equals c. So even if I ask for it in standard form, you would still, if I give you a point and slope, write it in point slope form, distribute, move it over. Now you have it in slope intercept. If you want standard, all you have to do is move that 2x over to the other side, and that would be your standard form equation, rewriting it, the negative 2x, then the plus y equaling -4. That's standard form. And some multiple choice answers write the a value as positive, so they would write it as positive 2x minus y equals +4. And this would be standard form if I asked for it in standard form. This was the slope intercept, if I asked for it in slope intercept. And this was the point slope, if I asked for it in point slope form. So this is all stuff that we should be comfortable with. Now, today's section is a continuation of yesterday's, which was the words parallel and perpendicular were introduced. And we all should know that parallel lines, it's written down here on the board as well, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. What does that mean? It means you change the sign and flip the fraction. So with that said, whenever you see the word parallel or perpendicular, I'm indirectly giving you the slope of your line, okay? So today's type of question is going to be, you have a line that passes through a certain point, and instead of me just straight up telling you, hey, m is equal to 2, I want to tell you your line is parallel to y equals 2x plus 5. And then you'd be like, oh, parallel means the same slope, so you get that same slope from that equation. Does that make sense? I hope so. So let's take a look at this first example, which is pretty easy. It's almost identical to this, where I give you a point and I indirectly give you a slope. I tell you that your line is parallel to this other line. Check it out. So right here we have the question, write an equation. Oh, it says should be in slope-intercept form. In slope-intercept form of the line that passes through the point 3, 2 and is parallel. So again, parallel, whenever you hear the word parallel, you need to automatically think same slope. So what is the slope of that equation that I give you right here? What's the slope? This is obviously in y equals mx plus b. The b is 5. What's the m? 1, correct? So the m is 1. So they're telling you that your line is parallel to this line. So you just identify the m value, and that is going to be your m value. So indirectly, they're giving you the slope of your line. They're giving you that m equals 1. Okay. What else do they give you? They tell you that it passes through the point 3, 2. And that's obviously a x1, y1. And again, you would use point slope form because they give you a point and they give you a slope. Here's your point slope form equation. Of course, it's on the wall if you don't have it memorized. And when you use a point slope form equation, you rewrite it with blank spots. Y minus blank spot equals blank spot, parenthesis, x minus blank spot. Then you plug in your y1 value, which is 2. That goes right there. You plug in your m value, which we said was 1. And how did we get this? We didn't get this slope by doing the slope formula. We got this slope by understanding the definition of parallel lines. Parallel lines have the same slope. So you look at this line, you see that slope, you conclude that your slope is the same slope. Okay. If it would have said perpendicular, you have to change the sign and flip the fraction. Anyway, we'll get to one of those later. Right now, our slope is 1, and our x1 value is obviously 3. So if the instructions said write your equation in point slope form, this would be it. That's point slope form. But the instructions do not say write it in point slope form. It says write it in slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So obviously you don't have parentheses in y equals mx plus b, and you want y by itself. So you got to get y by itself. So let's first get rid of the parentheses by distributing our m value, and multiplying by 1 doesn't really change anything. 1 times x is 1x. 1 times -3 is -3. Bring down the equal sign, bring down the y minus 2. Now you could get y by itself. All you got to do is add 2, and here's your y equals mx plus b equation. Y equals 1x minus 1. That's your answer, your equation in slope intercept form. Okay, so what was the difference between this one and the previous one that we just did? Well, first of all, the previous one, you guys made it up. But more importantly, the previous one, I told you your line passes through a certain point and it has a certain slope, and you just plugged it into y equal or point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. And on this one, I indirectly give you the slope. I don't tell you, hey, your slope is 1. I tell you your line is parallel to this line. So you look at this line, and you could clearly see the m value right there. So you know that your m value, your slope has to be the same. That's the definition of parallel lines. I don't know if you're still not feeling too good, underline the word parallel and put same m, same slope, right? Now, perpendicular is where you have an opposite reciprocal slope. So check it out. This next one, this one right here, this one's way more challenging, way more challenging. Why is that? Because we want to write an equation of the line that passes through this given point. So I do still give you a point, -3 comma 5. That's going to be your x1, y1. And I indirectly give you a slope by you reading the word perpendicular. Parallel means same slope. Perpendicular means opposite reciprocal slope. But what's the problem here? The problem is this is in standard form. And standard form, as we could see, ax plus by equals c, it doesn't even have an m involved. So you cannot see the slope in standard form. You could see it in slope intercept or in point slope. So it's pretty easy to go from here back to the y by itself so you could see the m. All you got to do is solve for y. In other words, subtract the x, divide by b, divide everything by b. Then you'll have y by itself. Then you could, once you have y by itself, you could see the value in front of x, and that'll be the slope that that equation has. And your perpendicular slope is going to have the opposite reciprocal slope. What does that mean? That you change the sign from a positive to a negative or negative to a positive and flip the fraction. Okay. So once again, they give you a point and they indirectly are trying to give you a slope. But the thing is, we can't see the slope yet. So let's go to this standard form and let's get y by itself so we could see the slope. We're going to subtract 5x, subtract 5x. You're going to rewrite this, bless you, negative 6y equals negative 5x with a plus 9. Final step will be to divide by negative 6 to get y by itself. Divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. Your equation's now y equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive, but 5 over 6, you can't really divide it or reduce it. That's as simple as it gets. You still have the x right next to it. And if you did 9 over negative 6 on a calculator, 9 divided by negative 6, it'll give you negative 3 over 2. Now, all I did was change the way this standard form looks. That way, I changed it to what? I changed the standard form to slope-intercept form. Why? So I could see my slope. Or not my slope, but the slope of that equation, okay? So what is the slope of that equation? It's 5/6. Our slope has to be perpendicular to that slope. What does it mean to be perpendicular? What does it mean to be perpendicular? It's on the wall right there. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. What does that mean? You change the sign and flip the fraction. So if you were to take this slope and you change the sign and flip the fraction, what's your slope? Obviously, a positive 5/6, change the sign, it's going to be a negative. But if you flip the 5 and the 6, it's going to be a 6 over 5. So everybody should understand that the slope that we want, that is perpendicular to this slope, is going to be the opposite reciprocal slope. So once you have that information, you never have to look at this again. You don't have to look at this equation anymore because you now know your point and your slope. And obviously that's good enough to start an equation in point slope form. And there's point slope form. All you got to do is rewrite it with blank spots. And then of course, plug in your values. The y1 value is 5. The m value is negative 6 over 5. Normally we get the slope using the slope formula. Right here, we got the slope because of the word perpendicular. Once we see the slope, it's a negative reciprocal, which is negative 6 over 5, which that's our slope, negative 6 over 5. And obviously x1 is negative 3. So we plug in a negative 3. Now, on the next test, it may ask you in the instructions to write it in point slope form, and you would be done right here. All you'd have to do is change the minus minus to plus plus. But obviously, it doesn't say in point slope, it says slope intercept, which is y by itself. So you'd have to distribute the fraction, or you could get rid of the fraction. It's totally up to you. You guys want to distribute the fraction or get rid of the fraction? Get rid of it, okay? To get rid of a fraction, you need to multiply everything by the denominator of the fraction you want to get rid of. In this case, the 5. So if you put a times 5, that 5 up there will cancel with that 5 down there, and then you only have to distribute a negative 6 to both terms. But then again, you have to multiply everything by 5. So also the y by 5 and even the 5 by 5. Now, if you're thinking, didn't you just say everything? Don't I multiply this inside of the x by 5 and the 3 by 5? No, because whatever you do to this m value, it's like if you did it to the inside values because of distributive property. So if you multiply everything by 5, it'll get rid of the fraction. Let me rewrite what I have here. I have a 5y minus 25 equals negative 6 parenthesis x plus 3. And now you could get rid of the parenthesis, distributing that minus 6 times x is minus 6x, minus 6 times 3 is minus 18. Bring down the equal sign. 5y minus 25 is what we have so far. Now let's get y by itself. We're going to add 25, cancels, add 25. We're going to end up with 5y equaling negative 6x plus 7. Oh, 6, 7. Okay. And then we're going to get rid of that 5 by dividing by 5, dividing by 5, dividing by 5. And you now have it in slope intercept form. Here's your equation. Y equals negative 6 over 5x plus 7 over 5. Believe it or not, that is the answer that you're going to have to type in on your homework assignment today. By the way, if you copied this down, you might as well write down that this is question number 11 on your homework. okay? This is probably one of the hardest questions that there is because it works out with fractions, it has fractions. Now, you didn't have to get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by 5 right here. You could have distributed the fraction with the calculator and done everything with the calculator. So once again, if you compare the first question that we did, I gave you a point, I gave you a slope. Compare it with this one. I gave you a point and I indirectly gave you a slope with the word perpendicular. Of course, you had to do some work to actually find the slope of this equation. And then you got to go with the definition of perpendicular, which is the opposite reciprocal of this fraction. So you have to change it and flip it. That's how you get your slope. So you're still dealing with the point and the slope, and you're still going with point slope form. The only thing is I don't straight up tell you, hey, your slope is negative 6/5. You got to figure out what your slope is based on the definition of perpendicular and based on you modifying your equation so you could actually see the m value. Let's try another. This is question number 6 on your homework, another challenging one. They give you a point. The point is negative 5 comma 6. That's technically your x1, y1. And they also indirectly give you a slope because of the word parallel. What does parallel mean again? Parallel means same slope. Parallel means same slope. So once you find the slope of this equation, your slope is going to be exactly the same. Does that make sense? Do we see the slope right here? No, we can't because it's in standard form. So we need to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 4x, subtract 4x. We're going to end up with 3y equaling negative 4x plus 1. Final step is to divide everything by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our slope-intercept form equation. Y equals, the slope is negative 4/3. Of course, there's an x right next to the slope, and the b value happens to be plus 1/3. Now, that's not a problem because they're not asking us to graph it. The whole purpose of us taking the standard form and modifying it to slope-intercept form was for us to be able to visually see the m value of this equation that they give you. What is the m value? It's negative 4/3. They're telling us that our slope is going to be parallel to that slope, which means same slope. So our slope, you don't change the sign and flip it, you actually keep it negative 4/3. That's the slope of our line. This is the point of our line. You don't need to look at this anymore. You already got the information you needed. You're now going to jump to point slope form. Why? Because you have a point and you have a slope. Let's go with point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. I recommend rewriting it with blank spots. And then you could plug in your y1, which is 6, your m, which is negative 4/3, and your, bless you, by the way, and your x1, which is negative 5. So then from there, change the minus minus to plus plus. And once again, you might have the instructions that say write it in point slope form, right? Like on the instructions, it might say write an equation in point slope form, not slope intercept. Okay, so if it does say point slope, there's your answer. That's your point slope form answer equation. But they want in slope intercept. So we need to get rid of the parentheses and get y by itself. So on the last one, we got rid of the fraction by multiplying this by 3, that by 3, and this by 3. That way it leaves you the negative 4 to distribute. But how about this? Let's go with the calculator this time. And let's not be afraid of the fraction. Let's use the fraction with the calculator. So we're going to distribute negative 4/3 times x. Any number times x is going to be that number in x. 5 times x is 5x. 7 times x is 7x. Negative 4/3 times x is going to be negative 4/3 x. How about negative 4/3 times 5? Do that on the calculator, and you will get negative 20/3. Does anybody want to see the calculator, or you guys are good with that? So like I said, don't be scared. You could use the button right here, the fraction button, and you could type in negative 4/3 and then multiply by 5, and you'll get the answer negative 20/3. Okay, so you could just simply go negative 4/3 times 5 on the calculator, you get the negative 20/3. So we still have the equal sign, still have the y minus 6. Now all we have to do is get y by itself. And again, with the calculator, all you have to do to get y by itself is add 6, cancels out, and add 6 over here to that other number. So let's do that with the calculator. So once again, type in negative, the fraction bar, 20/3, and then put plus 6, and it'll give you the answer negative 2/3. So right here, negative 20/3 plus 6 is negative 2/3. So what we have here is the final answer, y equals negative 4/3 x minus 2/3. And again, we got that minus 2/3 from the calculator, negative 2/3. So you could have done it by hand by getting rid of the fraction, or you could have used the calculator the way we did on this video, and you'll get to your final slope-intercept form answer. So on these particular questions, you actually have to type in y equals negative 4/3x and then minus 2/3, okay, on your homework. And that's numbers. This one is particularly number 6 on the homework assignment, okay? So I hope this helps. It's all just the same thing that we've been doing for a week or two already, where once you have your slope and you have a point, you could go at point slope form, and then you could either you could easily distribute and then move that over to get y by itself. Then it'll be in slope intercept form. And if you wanted to change it from slope intercept to standard, all you got to do is move this x term to the left side, and then it'll be in standard form. Okay. Again, today's lesson is an emphasis of us indirectly giving you the slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes, which means that you change the sign and flip the fraction.